Good evening, viewers. I am Sohna Tunkara and you are watching the World Today newscast. Now to our news in detail. The head of the Tuberculosis Clinic at Gambia's Medical Research Council, Amadou Job, said in order to end tuberculosis in the country, a war needs to be waged on the misconception and stigmatization. Job made the remarks while speaking at an event organized by the University of the Gambia Debate Association with support from other stakeholders to commemorate World Health Day. And the theme for this year's celebration is Together Building a Fairer and Healthier World. Details in this report. The convergence brought together people from different academia to share values in exposing the global village to a fairer and healthier environment. April 7 of each year marks the celebration of World Health Day since its inception in 1948. The global celebration seeks to raise awareness regarding mental and physical health. Speaking during the event, Alaji Job, who is in charge of the tuberculosis clinic at MRC, said the fight against TB has been overshadowed by the society's negative perceptions and reactions to TB patients.
Stigma is really an obstacle in the fight to end TB, because you imagine an individual has a TB, needs support from the family, needs support from the community, and that individual has been thrown out of the society, has been thrown out of the compound, not helped. That individual will, at the end of the day, someone close to him has the TB, will hide, will not go for the treatment because the stigma attached to it. So stigma is the #1 enemy of fighting tuberculosis. You have seen families, husbands divorcing their wives because they have TB and they don't want to associate with someone who has TB. You imagine children going out of school, drop out of school. You imagine people being evicted from their rented houses because they have TB. They have TB and they've been thrown out. Those who are thrown out, maybe they have lack knowledge about TB. That is the stigma attached to it. TB is cured, is treatable. It can only be transmitted by inhalation, not by eating together, not by drinking together, not by drinking with the same cup together, not by sitting together, but by inhaling.
Tuberculosis is a disease caused by bacteria called Mycobacterium tuberculosis. The bacteria usually attack the lungs, but they can also damage other parts of the body and can sometimes be deadly. Considering the unfortunate ongoing pandemic, which continues to cripple different aspects of life and livelihoods for the past year, Job said a lot needs to be done to end other untold pandemics such as tuberculosis in the world, particularly in the Gambia.
COVID-19 is an obstacle to not only TB disease, but any other conditions, because people have been concentrated on COVID-19, and some people are even afraid of visiting the health facility because avoid being diagnosed with COVID-19. Maybe TB even started with that because people started stigmatizing COVID-19. Maybe at the end of the day, people are scared of going for testing. And this is exactly happening with TB. So you see that it would increase the number of tuberculosis cases because the time you spend to go to the health center, now it has reduced. You don't go to the health center to get tested. So and then you are spreading the disease. You are at home, they are spreading the disease, coughing and spreading the disease. So it's definitely increasing the number of TB cases in the country.
In their bid to join the rest of the world in celebrating this day, the president of the Debate Association, Lagami, said they deemed it necessary as university students to raise awareness through dialogue.
So, thank you. If you look at the University of the Gambia Debate Association, the things we do, especially the 10th Executive Council, are inspired by our current surrounding. But we've come to realize that World Health Day is one thing University of the Gambia, especially the Students' Union, is not really into as far as celebration is concerned. So, and we as an executive council deem it necessary to discuss because we have the belief that you cannot advance as a university or as a society without proper health discussion.
According to a report by WHO, a total of 1.4 million people died from TB, with an estimated 10 million people falling ill worldwide in 2019. TB is present in all countries and age groups. However, it is often overlooked by health providers and can be difficult to diagnose and treat. Job said about 1/4 of the world's population has a TB infection, meaning people have been infected by TB bacteria but are not yet ill with the disease and cannot transmit it. For iAfrica News, Sohna Tungara. The National Population Commission Secretariat, in collaboration with UNFPA, has on Thursday begun a 2-day training for National Assembly Select Committee on Health to build their capacity for advocacy on population, gender, and reproductive health issues. During the training, the lawmakers are expected to be exposed to the key commitments and declarations made by Gambia on international platforms on population and development. Our reporter JCPOA attended the training and she now reports.
The training is aimed at building the capacity of the country's lawmakers on population, gender and reproductive health issues in the Gambia. Gender inequalities still stand to be a major poor reproductive health issue in women, especially young girls. In many countries, gender inequalities have influenced people's ability to access health services. The Permanent Secretary at the Ministry of Gender, Children and Social Welfare, Rohibite, said the training will enrich the participants and other stakeholders to develop policy, planning and implementation on gender awareness. Mrs. Bite added that in order to reduce gender-related issues in the Gambia, the ministry has supported key established structures for gender-based victims.
These devastating effects affect all development sectors without exception. COVID-19 has become increasingly worrisome with the decline of some economies and disruption of socio-cultural lives of populations following the imposition of preventive measures taken by our government to protect its citizens. To efficiently improve the response and prevention of gender-related violence and to improve the comprehension of gender and reproductive health issues, my ministry with partners has initiated and supported the establishment of key structures at the decentralized level. These structures include a one-step stop for victims of gender-based violence, child protection committees at community levels, and renovation of an edifice at the backwaters shelter for gender-based victims to be accommodated temporarily and provided with counseling services.
As the protection of the right to health for women and children remains a major challenge, the Permanent Secretary at the Ministry of Health, Lamin Damfa, said sexual and reproductive health is fundamental to every individual in the country.
Therefore, the government of the Gambia has realized that the sustainable development of the nations would not be achieved without renewed commitments by the entire nation as well as local leaders and partners towards the improvement of women, children, and adolescent health. In addition, the burden of reproductive ill health in terms of both life and economic losses are enormous, as 20% of the global burden of women's health is related to sexual and reproductive health problems. Hence, sexual and reproductive health issues have to be the top priority for the government of the Gambia.
Meanwhile, the Director of Population Affairs, Mariama Fane, acknowledged that the training is organized in fulfillment of the commitments made in 2019 to strengthen the capacities of lawmakers to internalize population and development issues.
By the end of this 2-day training, we hope to enhance the capacity of the lawmakers present here today with cross-cutting knowledge on population and development realities and dynamics to better advocate for increased budgetary allocations, promote legislations, especially in the areas of reproductive health, including family planning, gender mainstreaming, among others, still for sustainable socio-economic development.
The majority leader of the National Assembly, Keba Kebaro, described the training as timely as the country continues to grapple with challenges in reproductive health, gender mainstream, and other population and development issues. According to a cross-sectional study conducted among women in Farafenni region, the majority of women in some rural Gambia experience reproductive health problems. Reporting for iAfrica News, I am JCPOA.
The world joins in solidarity with people of Rwanda as the country marks 27 years since the genocide happened. And during the Rwandan civil war, more than 1 million people were reported to have been systematically murdered in less than 3 months. Within 100 days period, members of the Tutsi minority ethnic group, as well as some moderate Hutu, were slaughtered by armed militias. Fatmata Kasim has more in this report.
At a virtual event remembering the victims of the 1994 genocide in Rwanda, UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres said preventing history from repeating itself requires countering the hate-driven movement that have become a transnational threat. Guterres said the UN and the rest of the world joins in solidarity with the people of Rwanda, reminding them to take lessons from what happened years ago.
As we join in solidarity with the people of Rwanda, we must take a hard look at today's world and ensure that we heed the lessons of 27 years ago. Today, around the globe, people are threatened by extremist groups determined on boosting their ranks through social polarization and political and cultural manipulation. These extremist movements represent the principal security threat in many countries. While the technology and techniques that extremists use are evolving, the vile messages and rhetoric remain the same. The dehumanization of communities, misinformation and hate speech are stoking the fires of violence.
Valentine Rukwabisa, permanent representative of Rwanda to the United Nations, said it is the responsibility of all member states to fight impunity.
In genocide, historical clarity is of essence and contributes to effective prevention. The task of fighting impunity and denial is the responsibility of all member states. It should be at the heart of the United Nations. Despite deceit, the truth prevails.
The genocide against the Tutsi in Rwanda pierced the concern of humanity, adding that the world realized the gravity of its collective failure. Volker Boskia pledged to protect and uphold the rights of every individual without distinction.
We pledge in their memory to do better, to stop hate speech when it is first uttered, to protect and uphold the rights of every individual without distinction, to condemn incitement, harassment, and violence against persons or communities, to take timely and effective steps to protect communities that are under threat of mass atrocities, to prevent future acts of genocide, to ensure accountability and justice.
In 1990, the Rwandan Patriotic Front, a rebel group composed of Tutsi refugees, invaded northern Rwanda from their base in Uganda, initiating the Rwandan Civil War. Neither side was able to gain a decisive advantage in the war, and the Rwandan government, led by President Juvenal Habyarimana, signed the Arusha Accord with the RPF on August 1993. Many historians argue that a genocide against the Tutsi had been planned for at least a year. However, Habyarimana's assassination on April 6, 1994 created power vacuum and ended peace accords. Genocidal killings began the following day when soldiers, police, and military executed key Tutsi and moderate Hutu military and political leaders. For iAfrica News, I am Fatoumata Kasim.
200,000-ton ship built in 2018 and operated by Taiwanese transport company Evergreen Marine ran aground and became lodged sideways across the water last month. The Egyptian president has given a directive to purchase ships equipped with a gun to be always standing by in case a similar crisis emerges. And the Suez Canal is an artery of world trade connecting the Mediterranean with the Red Sea and providing an avenue for vessels to pass between Asia and the Middle East and Europe. The main alternative, a passage around the Cape of Good Hope at the southern tip of Africa, takes considerably longer. More in this report.
The Suez Canal is 200 kilometers long. It is mostly a man-made water channel with natural lakes in between. Ships can navigate in only one direction for almost 2/3 of that journey. Expansions introduced to the canal in 2015 made it around 250 meters wide and 24 meters deep. It's enough to allow the biggest ships in the world to pass. But the grounding of the Evergreen last month proved that the canal is not big enough to immediately engage with a ship that big. To bring the ship back in position, Egypt heavily relied on tidal waves. It also needed more powerful tugboats than the 150-ton capacity ones it owns. Suez Canal officials say they're buying what will be two of the biggest tugs in the Middle East. They're also studying plans to widen the canal and possibly make it a two-way water channel. During the Ever Given crisis, the Suez Canal authorities said it might need to unload some of the ship's 223,000 tons of weight, but it lacked the equipment to do so. The Egyptian president has given directives to purchase ships equipped with cranes to be always standing by in case a similar crisis emerges. Buying mega equipment is the easiest part of the lessons learned from the Ever Given grounding. Widening the canal, though, is much more complicated. It requires tens of billions of dollars and many years to dig. And it's also not clear if global trade volume will be growing fast enough to make this expansion program financially rewarding.
Talks to revive the Joint Comprehensive Plan of Action, otherwise the Iran's nuclear deal, was praised by President Hassan Rouhani as a victory for his side during a cabinet meeting in Tehran on Wednesday. Rouhani complimented all parties of reaching an agreement in Vietnam on Tuesday. He also called it a beginning of a new era and called on the United States needs to be serious and straightforward in negotiation.
Iran has been dominating headlines since 2002 when reports emerged of its nuclear enrichment program, leading to sanctions by the UN Security Council in 2003. Talks around the JCPOA agreement revived what the Iranian President Hassan Rouhani described as victory during a cabinet meeting in Tehran. The United States explicitly says that policy has failed. The maximum pressure no longer works. They explicitly say, we have no choice but to negotiate. They explicitly say, if you are ready, we are ready to negotiate directly with you. If you are not ready, we are ready to negotiate indirectly with the P4+1. Well, this means victory for the Iranian nation. We should not underestimate this victory. President Rouhani saw the agreement as an opening chapter, but urged the seriousness of the United States if any meaningful consensus is to be attained. He pointed out that the US has realized its past wrongs and is now willing for talks, which he said would be considered with caution. The US has come to repent. It says, may I have repentance? It is saying, I want to repent. I want to return to JCPOA. Now we have to see how true it is, how faithful it is to its words in implementing it. We do not want to make a final judgment. We are judging it to this day. To this day, we see that what Iran says is accepted by the world. We say we will return to all the obligations of JCPOA if the United States returns, and we see that it will fulfill it in practice. In 2018, the Trump administration withdrew the United States from the JCPOA and began implementing crippling sanctions on Tehran. The current Biden administration earlier this year pledged to revive the nuclear negotiations with Iran, especially on its ballistic missile program. Iran began its nuclear program in 1957, which it says was for peaceful purposes. Suspicions, however, emerged when in 2002, Iranian dissidents revealed that Iran was developing nuclear weapons on the program. The IAEA in 2003 investigated the matter and concluded that Iran had failed to report those activities. The UN Security Council in February 2006 sanctioned Iran for refusal to suspend its nuclear enrichment programs. Since then, there has been a breach of agreements between Iran and Joint Comprehensive Plan of Actions over its nuclear program. For iAfrica TV, I am Omar Ahmad Toure.
From the reports by Omar Ahmad Toure, moving on. Gage Global Trading has on Wednesday donated items worth $1.8 million to support the less privileged in the country. Among the items donated were 700 bags of rice, 50 bags of sugar, 8 motorbikes, and 50 kilos of tomato paste and a car. Abubakar Jawara, the CEO of Gage Global Company Limited, said the gesture is meant to support those in their need of assistance. Fatmata Kasim tells us more.
Gambia Angola China Global Trading Company is a Gambian-based company that offers services ranging from manufacturing tomato paste and offering security services to mining and construction. Since inception, the company has been giving back to the community as part of its corporate social responsibility. The CEO of Gaj, Abubakar Jawara, said his company has been supporting the needy ever since he traveled abroad. Jawara said he emulated this kind gesture from his father, adding that since he was in Angola every Ramadan, he will send money to his late father to distribute it to the less privileged.
And then all what we are doing, we are doing for sake of Allah. We didn't do for any benefit or any propaganda. It's not about anything. We just used to do it. When I was in Angola, when I used to get monies, my father always told me that if you give more, Allah will give you more. If you give 1, Allah will give you 10. If you give 10, Allah will give you 100. If you give 100, Allah will give more than whatever you want. So, and I tested and I believe that. When I was young, I used to see my grandfather doing something what I'm doing now. But those days, no social media, no internet, no any communication, But Alhamdulillah, record is there. Whoever know my background, they will know that what I'm saying is really, and then is really happening in those days.
Billy Tunkara, the National Assembly member for Kantora, extended his gratitude to the CEO of the company for the kind gesture.
Equally, to call on other Gambians to emulate him positively by giving back to your community. If you are endowed with riches, it's always important to look backward. People that you are better off, how can you change their life? How could you be the life changer of those poor and vulnerable Gambians? That has been his vision. He doesn't pray to be enjoying his wealth alone. Rather, how can he also, as God has bettered his life, how can he also, in turn, better the lives of others? And that is a true humanitarian in our community.
The ambassador urged the government to support people who are willing to help develop the nation and not to put his concentration on people who are not even Gambians.
So my message to the government, when you have people like this, they enjoy to give, they want to complement the government offer, so we have to support them. We have to give them the content, we have to empower them. So my message to the government, they have to stop empowering others who don't have this country in the heart. They have to empower the local people, the local businessman people, so they can take this country to next level.
The first batch to receive the donation was the physically challenged people who received 50 bags of rice, 50 bags of rice to Ma Foundation for Women, 10 bags of rice to Nur Enterprise, 100 bags of rice to his staff, Senegalo Gambia, 50 bags of rice, 300 bags of rice and 50 bags of sugar for the people of Gambisara, 100 bags of rice and 10 bags of sugar to a boarding school in Gambisara. The motorbikes and the car was given to another needy individuals and the NPP media team. For iAfrica News, I am Fatoumata Kasim.
From the reports by Fatoumata Kasim, we will now go with a short commercial break. More news to come on the world today. Stay tuned.
They say we slept in one world and woke up in another. This global tragedy got humans together despite our social distancing. Our nature is taking a break. And giving us a wake-up call on what and who truly matters. Look around you. Hold on. Breathe. Count your blessings. Take time for self-renewal, for a better start tomorrow. Soon, life will be back. Meanwhile, let's stand apart together with one heart.
Welcome back. If you're just joining, this is the World Today newscast. And now to the rest of our stories. As vaccination campaign continues in the Gambia, the latest group to take the AstraZeneca jab is the Gambia Police Force. The senior officials were the first to take the jabs on Thursday during a massive COVID-19 vaccination campaign for security personnel under the Interior Ministry. More details of that in this report.
The Gambia security apparatus play a key role in the fight against the global pandemic, as they are among frontliners responsible for administering the COVID-19 guidelines set out by the health authorities. These men and women in uniform were also in charge of making sure that people and properties were safe during the course of the lockdowns, despite many crimes being reported. The Regional Health Directorate for Western Region deemed it necessary to vaccinate the security services. Mbenjai, Senior Surveillance Officer of Expanding Program on Immunization, assured that the Gambia will not take any vaccine that will be detrimental to one's health.
The Gambia's cold chain system, we also try to make sure that we do not get vaccine that would definitely be difficult to manage within our system. So that's why we said that we use vaccines that are in conversant with our routine immunization system, so that our cold chain system would definitely be able to handle it. So on that note, I will definitely encourage you people to get the vaccine. It's safe. We have received it. Anything that you do in the world, there is positive things and negatives. You definitely don't need to hide those things. For the vaccination program, even for children, when we vaccinate them, they have side effects. There are children, they cannot tell you that I have headache, I have fever, but they have side effects. So the vaccine also, if you receive it as an adult, you definitely see some of those side effects.
Musa Kamara, Regional Principal Health Officer, highlights the importance of getting the security officers vaccinated.
It is given to those in the front line, and the security are part of the front line. Health workers are part of the front line. So those in the front line are very vulnerable in terms of getting or succumbing to the virus. So to ensure that these people are protected, a vaccine has been produced, and this vaccine, today we are launching to ensure that those who are in the front line are protected. So that being the case, the vaccine is given in 2 shots with 2 months interval between one shot and the other.
Meanwhile, the newly appointed Inspector General of Police, Abdoulaye Sanyang, assured the full cooperation of the police force for effective vaccination.
With this virus, we plan to ensure that all security personnel under the Ministry of Interior are vaccinated, and this is already in progress in the regions. The Gambia Police Force and Sister Service, in collaboration with the health authorities, will use this opportunity to continue to deliver preventive measures, healthcare services to attain the Sustainable Development Goals, SDGs, for health.
The Gambia has received its first shipment of 36,000 doses of COVID-19 vaccines through the COVAX facility. The country began a vaccination campaign on 10th March 2021. Since then, over 14,000 people have already taken the AstraZeneca vaccine, and more frontline workers and people of high-risk groups are expected to be vaccinated in the coming weeks. Reporting for iAfrica News, I am Mariama Cham.
The Ontario-based Journalists for Human Rights commenced a 3-day training for Gambian journalists on COVID-19 and human rights reporting in the country. The training seeks to transform ideas for future stories with a special focus on rights of women and children, and of course, misinformation as part of mobilizing media in the fight against COVID-19. Participants are expected to receive professional mentorship throughout the story production process following the capacity building. Binta Fati has more.
The restrictions on the movement of people, right to assembly, amongst others, are part of the fundamental human rights which were violated since the start of the COVID-19 pandemic. Emergency measures, including lockdowns and curfews, meant to contain the spread of the deadly virus, has major impacts on the lives and livelihoods of people, particularly in the direction of socio-economic problems. In some cases, an increase in gender-based violence has been captured in reports since the beginning of the COVID-19 enhanced lockdowns. Considering the importance and crucial roles of journalists in keeping the public informed, the project motivates storytellers to report more on COVID-19 from the human rights perspective.
What we have seen in the Gambia mostly is the press releases we are getting from health authorities. Journalists are hardly taking the initiative to do very in-depth reporting on these issues, of course, including investigative journalism. So this is a way to encourage them to do more than just taking official information. There is a lot that we can do, as the Vice President of the Gambia Press Union said at the opening. It is our responsibility to hold the authorities to account, to hold them accountable, the public officers, because they are acting in our name and they are using our funding and our resources to implement policy programs.
The Vice President of the Gambia Press Union, Mohammed Esba, welcomed the training as timely, as it geared towards complementing the efforts of the Press Union. He encouraged participants to take advantage of the opportunity.
This training is timely. It is going to widen the scope of journalists or understanding of journalists on, how to report COVID-19 related issues in relations to human rights or looking at the human face. So
Aissatou Ceesay and Usman Dabo, both participants in the ongoing training, reflected on the importance of the project in their journalism profession. The COVID-19 pandemic has sparked what the World Health Organization termed as an infodemic, an inundation of information and disinformation about the disease. It is from this angle that journalists from credible media organizations across the globe are counted upon to play a critical role in communicating accurate public health measures and in combating misinformation. This mobilizing media fight COVID-19 project by Journalists for Human Rights is expected to contribute to international public health efforts to combat the spread of COVID-19 and its impact on human rights. Reporting for Africa TV News, I am Binta Fati.
Viewers, that was all we have for you on the World Today newscast. You can catch up with Mariama Cham on Gambia 24 at 2000 hours for more national stories. I am Sona Tunkara. Thanks for watching and bye for now.